the Bucks swept their series. The Boston Celtics swept their series. Head to head, they're gonna go in next round, and this is really a toss-up as to who's going to win. This series is really contingent on star power. If the stars play how they play, we're gonna see a 7-game series. Giannis has been playing in MVP mode. He is essentially asserting himself as one of the best players in the league, if not the best player. All of it is debatable and subjective. Really, you're looking at who's the best for your team. Then you're looking at Kyrie Irving, who's been through the postseason, been through 3 straight NBA Finals, won a championship. First time he's really with the guys. You guys got to remember, the last time the Celtics played the Bucks, I think they ended up there. They ended up beating them. I think it was in 5 games or something like that. Beat them in 5 games. That was without Kyrie Irving. So that being said, Kyrie Irving's there now, but this is not the same Bucks team. This is really interesting. I'm really fascinated by all the matchups. While the Bucks, I would say Bledsoe could possibly guard Kyrie Irving pretty good, but the Bucks don't really have anybody to guard Kyrie Irving well. And the Celtics don't really have anybody to shut down Giannis Antetokounmpo. So that being said, it's like, who's going to be winning their matchups? So not only is the star power going to matter, it's the role players, the Gordon Haywards, the Eric Bledsoes, guys like that. They're going to be making a huge impact in this series. This series is going to be a very defensive series, and we are going to get some overtime games. I'm really excited. I don't really know who to pick. My gut is leaning more towards the Celtics because they do have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who can not only defend Giannis a little bit, they won't be able to shut him down, but they can knock down shots and make plays. They also have Kyrie Irving. The trepidation I have about picking the Celtics is the fact that they have not come together really. They're still piecemealing the whole entire team. You might see that, okay, yeah, they swept the Indiana Pacers, but the Pacers did some things that contributed to that sweep, like turnovers in key moments, not being able to score. They had I think it was game 3 or game 2 in Boston. They were up in the 4th quarter like 10 or 12 points, 10 points. They hit 3 threes or 4 threes. They missed all of their layups. They went 0 for 9 for 2. They could not hit a layup and lost the game. So that being said, I mean, the Pacers contributed to that sweep. And we look at the Pistons, same kind of deal. If you pick in Milwaukee, you see how good they looked against the Pistons. Well, the Pistons only partially had Blake Griffin from time to time. And that really wasn't even anything huge because he wasn't at 100%. So they played without him for like 2 games, and they got swept. They just didn't have enough bodies, didn't have enough. So this series is really like feast or famine. Like one game you're going to get a really good Bucks team, next game you might not. One game you're going to get a really good Celtics team, next game you might not. But the thing about the Bucks that they have over the Celtics is they have a true identity. While the Celtics is like, they're still trying to figure everything out. But the Celtics are, talent-wise, they're more complete. But in terms of being together and cohesiveness, they're not. So that's where the Bucks really have the advantage. They play for each other. They know where each other's going to be. They defend really well. They have the Greek Freak. They have shooters. This Giannis with shooters is crazy. And they get a bunch of offensive rebounds. So this is really going to be a real interesting series. If I had to pick, I would say the Celtics in 7. Only reason is because they have more talent. They have Kyrie Irving, which when he goes on those massive runs, I don't think the Bucks are going to be able to shut that down at all. When he goes on those 10-2 runs just by himself, I don't think the Bucks are going to have an answer. That's going to deflate them here and there. So I'm going to go Celtics in 7. The Utah Jazz were able to stave off elimination. They win game 4 in Utah. And it's going to be a game 5. And people are already highlighting the fact that, well, the Rockets went 0 for 12 from 3 or something like that in the 4th quarter. And they just couldn't score. and what happens when you have to face with the Golden State Warriors. Well, the thing is, I felt like, number one, they should have closed them out, but they didn't. So that's the reality we have to deal with. This is our NBA teams we're dealing with. It's not like you're playing a video game and it's on pro and you could dictate how everything's going to go. Supposed to close them out, but you didn't. We got to move on from that. But Game 5, I expect Houston to close them out because Donovan Mitchell's been struggling. This is the only game that he played really well, and it took a 0 for 12 performance for the Rockets to lose the game, like from 3 or whatever the case is. I don't expect that to happen again. So in this series is essentially a wrap. Now the next series, are you going to be able to get away with shooting all them threes, or James Harden, starting 0 for 15 or whatever the case is? Are you going to be able to do that against the Warriors? No. But I'm pretty sure the Houston Rockets know that they're not going to be able to do that. Game 4, I felt like the Houston Rockets essentially played down to their competition. Like, I just felt like they just didn't match the intensity, and they forgot they were playing an NBA team. They thought they were going to roll over and die. But teams don't do that, especially at home. They don't want to get swept. They try their hardest. They're going to foul, muck up the game. They're going to do whatever it takes to win the game and not embarrass themselves. Especially Utah Jazz, because I think last year they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, or 2 years before that, whatever, one of those years. But they know what playoff success kind of tastes like. They've been out the first round, so they're not going to go out like that. That being said, now you prolong the series. Now you gave Utah a little confidence, and now they're going to try to see whatever worked in Game 4, try to exploit it. But I'm pretty sure Mike D'Antoni, if he's a good coach, he's going to come back with a counter. And apparently he's a good coach, so he will have a counter for all those measures. But what Houston has to realize is they're way too top-heavy with James Harden, facilitating, scoring. He just does way too much. And when you get to the next round, it's not going to work. One man is not going to be able to propel the whole entire series, the whole series for a long series. That's not going to work. That's not gonna work. So PJ Tucker, Manimal, CP3, of course, we know he steps up. But it's all the ancillary pieces, all the ancillary shooters. Austin Rivers, y'all gonna have to step up because this is not a game. And then it almost looks like Houston kind of ran out of gas that game. Now you gotta fly back, less rest, and play them again. And anything can happen in a closeout game. So that's important to really remember. Anything can happen in a closeout game. Always remember that. So injury can happen, fight can happen, anything can happen. So that's something to watch out for right there. And last but not least, I guess all of these guys have a lot of gripes with the media, and they don't feel like answering the questions, like from Russell Westbrook to Paul George imitating Russell Westbrook to recently KD saying that the media needs him for his free agency talk and news and stuff like that. I think this is my true feelings about this. I feel like the media, they're doing their job, they're doing a professional courtesy. The NBA is essentially, they're making these guys talk at the podium or whatever the case is. But to me, people who produce, when you look at LeBron, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, all these guys, when they don't want to answer something, I think the media should give them a pass or a grain of salt or something. When Kevin Durant's talking about his free agency and the media is harping on it and bringing it up every single game or whatever the case is, some people might say KD doesn't understand that he's selling a story and this is part of the game. I'm pretty sure he does understand that, but I don't think the media in the same sense understand that he's a human being who gets asked these questions time after time after time after time. And he's just supposed to continue to answer the same questions over and over again. People are fishing for answers. He's not really willing to give them. So it's just if you're the media too, just take it with a grain of salt, write your story, say he didn't want to answer, and then make your own conjectures about that. That's quite all right. You can make up a whole story and then get him mad the next week and ask him how he felt about the story. That's it. I mean, if a guy doesn't want to answer a question or whatever, you can't force him. I know it's his professional job to do so. I know they get paid $30+ million to answer all your questions or whatever the case is. But at the same time, you can't continue to harp or malign the fact that these guys don't want to talk to the media sometimes. Just like some of the media people don't want to do their job. Now, I know they do their job. Now let's flip this. Because when you're at work or whatever, they say like there's a 30% or 40% when you're at work where you're not productive. And some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. So I'm pretty sure some of these media people have good days and bad days where they don't want to write a piece, or they write a horrible piece, or they leave things out, or they write a short piece. Well, chalk it up for Kevin Durant for these short pieces or whatever. So like the same way an editor or a writer, they have a bad week or a bad day doing their job. It's the same way that Kevin Durant might have a bad week or a bad couple of days talking about his free agency. So I feel like the human element of it is kind of devoid in terms of interviewing and at the podium with these athletes. I feel like we kind of separate ourselves from the athlete, and like when they ask them certain questions, it's like you expect them to just be like a robot. And if you're not a robot, then you get blackballed. Like Patrick Ewing, kind of like he had the same kind of deal where, see, and this has been going on since the 80s and the early 90s, and Patrick Ewing had a really bad relationship with the media, and that hurt himself in terms of coaching in the professional ranks. That's why he never really got a head coaching job in the NBA, really, because he wasn't really good with the media. So like at the end of the day, it kind of sucks because it's just like one mistake you make with the media, but you play really well, kind of negates everything for a certain thing. So it's like, I understand the media is there, is necessary, and everything like that, but you can't force a guy to answer certain questions, to say certain things that you don't want them to say. They might not be in that mood now. Maybe 10 years down the line, Kevin Durant answers all your questions, or maybe a week from now, he answers all your questions. You know, Russell Westbrook, I disagree with how he goes about saying things and doing things, because I feel like the questions they ask him are valid, because his personal production is great, but his production in terms of winning and stuff like that is not so great. So if somebody's asking you something about that, the same way when they ask you when you're winning, how did you feel about this, they could ask you the same thing about when you're losing. He's done a lot of losing since KD has left. In terms of KD, though, when he's done as much winning and two-time MVP, finals, 2 rings, I think the media should watch how they're asking him those questions. It's the same way how they watch how they're asking LeBron the questions. Like for a lot of times when people ask LeBron questions, it's like they're really good questions. They don't really go much over the line, or they'll be like, you know, I understand you said that you didn't want to talk about free. They kind of come out with a little more respect. Like with KD, that's kind of like there's a disrespect factor there when they're talking to him, either in the question or just in the way that they came up with the questioning. A lot of questions are fair. I'm not gonna say KD is perfect or whatever the case is, but to me it's just like, from his perspective, I'm producing, I'm playing ball, I'm doing everything I gotta do. If I'm a little grumpy or I don't want to answer a question, just give me your next question. I will answer your next question. Just whatever question about my free agency, I don't want to talk about it. But it's also incumbent upon KD to say, hey, I don't want to talk about free agency. We're talking about this series. That's it. And it's incumbent upon him not to bring it up either. Don't bring that crap up. Don't bring it up, because then you open the door for the media. That's what the media feels like. Once you speak something, it's you know, the door is open for you to go in on them or whatever the case is. But you are a public figure. You have to talk in the public. That's part of your job. I know it sucks, but them paychecks, them $200,000 paychecks that come in direct deposit, they feel a lot better too when they come in, don't they? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but you know, you got it. I understand. And here's the best part. This is my advice to anybody that doesn't want to talk to media, players from Kyrie, KD, Russ. Give them a generic answer. Give them a generic answer. How did you feel about that loss? Well, I didn't play well. We shot 30% from the field. We just needed to get better shots. If they ask you something about how do you feel about free agency, hey, I'll deal with my free agency when it comes in the summer. It's not the summer right now, so I want to focus on right now. If they ask you something about how do you feel about the personal matchups, I feel like I have an advantage. Like, just be so bland and generic that they don't ask you any more questions. And that's my advice for that. Hoops Junction, where hoops meets hoop love. Like, comment, subscribe.